Well, welcome. This is awesome. You guys are such a good group here. And as Tanya was mentioning, this panel is really about, we know now, we've been talking about it throughout, we need to connect. Automotive industry need to connect with the consumers, and this is what this is all about. It's really finding that, well, as it was put on our agenda, butts in seats, so eloquently. And it's really, because it's not enough just to know about the information. You know, we touched on it. Nowadays, consumers know so much about the cars before they even go into the dealership. So it's really about giving them that experience. So these ladies here will talk about it much more eloquently than I am. So why don't we first just start off with everyone introducing yourselves a little bit and, you know, where your position is in the brand.
Hello, hi, Deidre DeLilly with Toyota. I lead our sponsorship marketing and events group, so oversee our entire portfolio of Toyota partnerships as well as other marquee dealer and consumer-facing events like auto shows and National Dealer Meeting.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bridget Hanrahan. I work for Subaru of America. I oversee some of our non-endemic experiential work, brand partnerships with organizations, including our nonprofit relationships, product launch, and field marketing. I think that covers it. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Alexia from Mini USA. I manage all of our dealer-facing and consumer-facing events, so that includes national meetings as well as tentpole events like our cross-country rally, Mini Takes the States.
Hi, I'm Shelly Pratt. I work for Infinity. I run the entire marketing department, so consumer-facing, media, creative, and then also all of the events and activations.
All right, well, so I sort of touched on it a little bit in terms of why these kinds of experiences are important, but just more specifically, talk about why it is that you've, especially today, like you're seeing that you need to have these kind of experiences with consumers to really connect. And we can start with you, Deidre.
Sure. So I think it's all about meeting consumers at their passion points. And I always challenge my team as we think about designing events or activations or experiences to think through how are we going to add value to that consumer engagement, or how are we going to enrich that experience in some way. And that can be done through a lot of mediums. That can be done through education. That can be done through entertainment. Ideally, it's done through both. And it has to have emotion tied into it. That's truly critical. And I think if you have a consumer walk away from an experience with your brand more educated, more connected, and having some feeling about what they just experienced, then that's a successful engagement. So I can give you an example here at New York Auto Show. You know, my team created what we call Toyota Sports Fest, and that is out on the show floor. So hopefully you can all go check that out. But as a global Olympic and Paralympic partner, as well as a number of national governing body partnerships that we have in place, we thought it would be a great test to bring a sports festival to the footprint of auto shows. And now this is the second season of us doing that. And what it is, it's a fully accessible, fully inclusive sports experience that allows consumers to engage in a myriad of Olympic and Paralympic events. And this is done because it really truly ties to our overarching goal of creating a world in which there's no barriers and there's ever better mobility for all. So it's a great intersection of a number of partnerships, as well as a fantastic event and footprint where we know there's going to be inherently a lot of foot traffic. And we've seen some remarkable results. We've almost doubled the dwell time in our space when we have the Sports Fest there, and also almost doubled leads. So we understand now consumers are walking away knowing a little bit more about our overarching commitment to mobility, and have seen some success in doing that.
Yeah, and Alexia, I want to put this to you because I know you talk about sort of hosting that journey, and really Mini has been very known for that in terms of the different events you have. So how important is that story, not only your sharing your story, but also your customers, your consumers are sharing theirs?
So I think when we look at our event, like Mini Takes the States, right? This is a loyalty program for us. It's owners that come on an actual physical rally journey with us, typically cross country. They're spending anywhere from 2 to 9 days with us, and we curate every single mile that they drive, but then also the experience itself. So we know from a brand, the #1 reason that people purchase Minis is fun to drive. So drive is always going to be part of every experience we offer to people. We say that Mini is the only car company that comes standard with friends, so community, also a huge pillar, right? Bringing all of these people together to become part of one large family. And then motoring for a purpose, so we always add a charitable element to everything we do. And so we have this story that's inherently built into the experience that we've created for our customers. And then what we try to do through our social media channels is to take that story and take people who aren't physically on the journey with us and share that journey with them, so that when they're sitting at home or wherever they are on their phone, they're saying, that's something that I'd like to be part of, and they feel almost like they could be part of this experience. The only thing they need is a Mini.
Yeah, and Bridget, for Subaru, which you guys have always been, I love the pet stuff that you do, but just that love promises. And I think, so talking about those partnerships and really creating that kind of affinity with consumers, it's always been a huge part of your DNA as well.
Absolutely. So if you made it upstairs and you went through the auto show experience for the past few years, you can come to the New York Auto Show and adopt a dog. So Zippy is out there today, and somebody better take Zippy home, right? But actually, supporting pets is an incredibly important aspect to our brand. In every October, we generally help about 50,000 animals get rescued out of shelters and into loving homes. And so that number has just grown and grown. It's well over 300,000 now. For that, we're incredibly proud. But back to what my new friend Deirdre was saying, it's really important for us that when you engage with Subaru and you're in our world, that you walk away, and when you're there, you really feel what the brand is about. So if you do journey upstairs, you'll be immersed in a brand that loves and respects the outdoors, that is absolutely committed to building very safe vehicles, and gives back, and is long-lasting, and it is an awarded product for its safety and other benefits. And so really, it is about meeting customers at their passion points, but what do they take away from the experience? And back to the original question, I do think that that is an important part to getting people into the cars and experiencing them, and generally they're very excited once they do.
Yeah, and Shelley, way back there.
Hello, how are you?
I know that especially the past couple of years, it's really been a core part of your brand, getting people to experience. They didn't necessarily know enough about you. So talk about how that's impacted you in these last couple of years.
So important. So Infiniti has less brand awareness, but we find that once we get someone in our vehicle, their willingness to pay increases significantly, and it changes their perception of the brand, so much so that we made a whole brand campaign called Infinitely You, talking about the moments in the car, and it's just one aspect to bring it to life in a commercial, but to actually get someone in the car and experience it, it's core to our brand. We're also all about hospitality. So one of our best events we had, it was really a grassroots event. We went to high traffic areas such as Fashion Island. We had a couple in Chicago and New York, in areas that people were naturally spending their Saturdays or Sundays. And then our car was there with product specialists on hand. We had ride and drive. It's a really low pressure environment to go there, to be able to experience it, drive it, ask questions without feeling that pressure of like, okay, you need to buy right now, which that is very important as well. We are in the market to sell cars, but it just kind of takes that off. And then you want to submit a lead. Then you want to interact with the brand. You want to engage with the brand because you've had this first touch point with them that is really impactful. And it did so well for us when we were launching the QX60 that we just revealed our all-new QX80. We're going to do it again. and take learnings from that and have these moments that you want to share. They're Instagrammable moments. They're beautiful environments. We had a sound bath in there, so if it was crazy hectic outside, you get inside and just kind of have your moment of reprieve, right? Of like, okay, maybe my kids could be outside. I'm going to come in here and chill out for a second. And, that's just really important. And you don't forget that. And it's probably one of the most important parts of our job. And it's one of those areas that you really have to protect when you're securing budgets, right? Like working media is easy to do. Experientials are so important, if not more.
Well, and you did sort of touch on it a little bit, but the digital aspect of it, because consumers are everywhere and they want you to be where they want to be. What channels, not only in real life, IRL, but just also digitally. How are you incorporating it into the overall strategy and being able to leverage digital along with these experiential events? And Bridget, why don't we start with you?
Oh, sure. So digital is incredibly important, obviously. So if you're going to have these experiential events, generally you want to go where your target consumer is. But as you build up, you want them to be just coming out for you. So an example I would talk about for us is Subaru Winterfest. We have a wonderful partnership with Powder Resorts, and we bring a festival to the mountain. And so in the beginning, it really started as something where we were just showing up to make the lives of winter sports enthusiasts better. And it's really shifted to become something where they're coming to the mountain because we're coming to the mountain. And so how did we do that? Well, one, it was by putting on an amazing experiential event, but the second part would be promoting it digitally. So for that, we would use every imaginable digital tactic, including social, including influencers, and digital content. So incredibly important part of digital teams and experiential teams working together to pull everything off and get the right people there.
Well, Alexia, I know you incorporated what my dog I always used to call FOMO. So in terms of really creating that.
Yeah, I think it's taking what's happening that they're not part of and making them say, how can I be part of it? And a lot of that is creating FOMO and looking at happy faces and the charitable aspects of the things that we do and helping them visualize that they could be part of that experience.
So Deidre, talk about how important it is maybe to capture like that user-generated experience and really seeing it. We've heard people say, you want to hear your friend is using this, the EV or whatever it may be. So hearing that people are doing these things, how helpful is that in getting the word out for you more?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we think about, an event activation as a single moment in time that cannot be successful unless there's an opportunity to take that digital moment and expand it socially or digitally. And so UGC is a great example. We're a global Olympic and Paralympic partner, so Paris 2024 is certainly on my mind every waking moment right now. But I think there's a couple of tactics that we'll employ. One is UGC. So how do we get people who, there's a fraction of a percentage of people that can actually travel to the Paris Olympic or Paralympic Games and participate. So how do we get people to care about our athletes, right? If you think about the Olympics, that's what you have emotion for. It's the athletes that represent your country. So how do we, one, get people connected to the athletes? We have over 200 globally that are part of Team Toyota and have them help us support them in a way. And then how do we take, a global event like the Paris Games and bring it back to a consumer? And that's done through a lot of the tactics I'm hearing here, but, social influencers being one, giving people a sneak peek to an experience that they would never be able to attend on their own.
Well, also, I think you said something to me before about using QR codes. Like, one did that because I feel like marketers have sort of that maybe not kind of thing for QR codes. Sometimes they work, sometimes not so much.
Yeah, we actually have a recent campaign. This is not so much an experiential campaign, but a Toyota Crown campaign that was recently launched, and that was using digital out of home and then using a QR code, which would actually send you to a AR platform to be able to engage on your mobile phone fully with the new Crown. And this worked because for two reasons. One, we actually didn't have a lot of availability to have the Crown in our dealerships at the time of launch. And then 2, we knew the intender of the vehicle was very much a tech-savvy, innovative, forward kind of consumer. And so, I think being able to engage with a 3D rendering, and we're not talking about just seeing it, it's, moving the vehicle, actually having the vehicle in a live environment like your garage or your driveway, changing the color, putting yourself in the seat of the vehicle, and actually doing a test drive. I think it's been really successful in the goal of driving awareness for the,
and I
the vehicle.
think that's really cool, because as you said, you can't always, you want to get the butts in the seats, but maybe you still
Virtual
kind of
butts
did.
in seats.
Yes, the virtual,
Yeah.
that's, it's digital now, and that's really such a great way to do it. Shelley, you guys just had a major launch.
A big one, yes.
Yeah, well.
It was like planning a wedding, and half the people in the room here, so I appreciate it.
But your partnership was with iHeartMedia.
Yes,
And so how did you leverage their, because they obviously have a much wider audience than you. So talk
Yes.
about leveraging the partnerships for this kind of event.
You definitely have to tap into our partners like iHeart to reach their network. And what we did a week ago today, we disassembled a car, a big QX80, and reassembled it 100 stories up on the edge in Manhattan, and had a big reveal out there. We leveraged Aaron Andrews and John Batiste. It was a huge moment for us, and it was a very epic moment. And iHeart helped us pull it off, right? So they invited influencers there, influential people, prospective owners, and really helped us fill it with the right people. And so, as Deidre said, it can't be a moment in time. We definitely live streamed it, so I think 600,000 people watched it on the live stream. But we can't stop there, especially for a brand like us. We're small, we're scrappy. We are now going to tell the story of how we got a full SUV up 100 stories. So we're going to have
How
behind the
did you
scenes.
get it up 100 stories?
It wasn't easy. Let's just say we might have disassembled it and then reassembled it. So it was a bold moment. Sometimes being bold is a little uncomfortable, but it was great. And using that, because that's a really interesting story, even if you're not an automotive enthusiast, of like, okay, that's really cool. How did you do that? I want to see that. And then leveraging the social content we got there, and then the behind the scenes, and then we're going to make a sizzle reel. So that moment, yes, it was last Wednesday, but it's going to last us up until the launch. And just as they said here, we'll use it in CRM, we'll use it in social, we'll use it in digital, and really amplify it and get people excited.
Well, and just even talking about getting that earned media. I think with all of these events, I'm sure that's a big part of it. Each one of you have mentioned where you have that kind of publicity. But when you create that, how then do you make sure to latch onto it into your overall strategy? So, Deidre.
Yeah, it has to, I think it has to ladder up. A sponsorship strategy, event experiential strategy has to be the one in the same to business and brand strategy. I think a recent event, that's top of mind for me is Super Bowl. We're NFL partners, and a huge earned media moment, probably the biggest, right, in the world. And I think leveraging social influencers in a way that's authentic to your brand, that's really helping you amplify the existing message that's critical to your business, has to be part of a strategy. We had, a social influencer group of NFL players with us at the media center, where we launched, our all-new Tacoma. And they played a really significant role. We built out an actual mobile studio next to the Tacoma in the media center, and it served as a great outlet for us to connect with both the media as well as consumers. We partnered with influencers, a podcast, Chris Long, and actually had the podcast occurring from our space. And we also had, and I'll say that's sort of maybe a short-term approach to influencers. I think partnering with someone or a group of influencers who help support a specific initiative or an event. We also brought in Eli Manning, who is a national partner of ours, someone we have a long-term relationship with, and he was able to really kind of help us talk very authentically about how much he, engages, and how his loyalty to the brand and the vehicles that he loves, and that allowed us to garner almost 1 billion social impressions with, I think just those players over a couple of day period.
Well, and do you make the difference there in the sense of you have your influencers, and yes, they need to be authentic to the brand. They need to come across real. But then you have the Eli Mannings, which are more of a partnership.
Correct.
And how do you distinguish the two? Because you
Yeah.
can't get a bunch of Eli Mannings.
No,
and
I
you
wish we
probably-
could, and we need
But
a
at the
little more
same
budget for
point,
that.
Influencers,
Yeah.
of course, have a huge value. So
Yeah.
how do you
Yeah,
differentiate?
I think we have a pretty deliberate strategy around that. So I would think about, traditional social influencers as folks that we'll partner with to support one initiative or a campaign launch, who can certainly, speak to, that product or that initiative in the short term. It has to be authentic still and to have the shared values of the Toyota brand. But, those are folks that we're doing short-term deals with. We have a group of athletes and players that we call Team Toyota, NFL players, Olympic Paralympians, anglers, drivers. So we have a group of folks who really are our core team of brand ambassadors who not only love the Toyota brand, but they can speak in an educated and passionate way about our product and about things, that we have in common, things that, we share. Community and philanthropic efforts are a big component of that. And what every single Team Toyota athlete or player shares is character. And that's something that we spend a lot of time making sure there's alignment when it comes to shared values and character.
Yeah, and Alexia, I want to turn to you because even Deidre mentioned community, but it is truly a community within the Mini group, and so you tend to go to the community as opposed to the influencer that you might find on social media.
Yeah, I mean, I think for all of us, like some of the conversation points are the same, whether it's a journalist in earned media or an influencer that is a paid influencer or an influencer that's really part of our community, that's more of an advocate than an influencer or a partnership. It's really about the experience, and I think, it's a buzzword, but the authentic experience. The journalist is getting the same experience that the owner's getting, that the person or the company that we're working with is getting, and that our influencers or social media advocates are sharing outward. It's all consistent, right? We're not creating different experiences for different people to share a different message. And so I think for us, because the authenticity piece of it is so important, rather than bring somebody outside in to experience the Mini community, we look within our Mini community and use them to share outward what the actual experience is.
Well, and now we're hearing a lot of positive there's so many positive with the influencers, but Bridget, I know that you had a few concerns with the challenges in terms of what you talked about. So,
Well, we don't have that Eli Manning money over at Subaru. I'm sorry, what was your question?
aside from you can't afford Eli,
Can't afford Eli.
Deidre will introduce you.
Yeah.
No, but in terms of what are the challenges to find that influencer that you would want to partner with?
Well, we are a relatively small car company, and so for us, very similar to what the other women up here are saying, we're always looking for a really authentic connection. And so most of our influencers that we work with are owners or have been owners, and so for us, and that's before we've introduced them to a new product or an initiative, a brand initiative that we're working on. And so they already have this deep love for our brand, which is so incredible. And our challenges with influencers, I think, are pretty common to other brands, where you're trying to find that right balance between carrying that brand message through and doing it in their own authentic voice that is natural to their audience with their people. So we're working on it. We're figuring it out. Yeah.
Well, because especially, with many brands, but automotive, I would think with all the regulations and just different things, there's a script you want. Yet, script should not be in the vocabulary of the influencer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a fine line. Do you just give them an outline, or do you, pray? How do you make it work?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we give them a brief, and we definitely don't give scripts, right? We want their own unique brand to get casted onto ours, and so if you go too far, it might not work. So you have to find that sort of happy medium of where it's paying off the message that you need to carry with your limited budgets and with what's going to work and be received well by their audience.
Well, so Shelley, I want to ask you on this in terms of, because you are, as you said, a newer brand, you want people to get to know you. So you have these amazing events that are getting a lot of media, but how do you then tie them into the overall strategy? Like, what is the driving force? Because you don't want it to be, again, I said earlier, one and done. You want to make sure that it has an impact.
Yeah, that's really important for us. Consistency is key, right? So we do have macro influencers, rising influencers, and just as you said, we have to make sure they align with the brand. We had a whole unscripted series that we did just that. We gave them the car. We had an all-new QX60 where we were selling to females that weren't necessarily ones that you want to know about horsepower or towing capacity. So we gave them a car like an Erin Andrews and said, okay, in your words, go out and explain this to somebody. How would you use this in everyday life? And I think that's really impactful because you start to then see yourself in the car. So it does have to be a part of the overall strategy, because it's one thing as an OEM to talk to a consumer, but people that you trust is somebody very different. And to be able to use someone, again, like an Erin Andrews, we just had her reveal the car. It's that consistency over time. If you find people that you love working with and you just keep using them over and over. And then we also, we use our partners. iHeart really helped us bring the right influencers to the event last week. And then we will have something that we call Gallery House. It's kind of like a Soho house where you bring content creators together in key areas like South by Southwest or Coachella, and they help us bring the right influencers in. And it doesn't have to be, one with 1 million people that follow them. It really, it has to be the right person for the brand. And some of them are good at TikTok, some are good at Meta, and you have to have those various different backgrounds and really leveraging partners to help us do that, whether it be the agency or partners that we do paid media with.
Yeah, well, for Deidre, in terms of, I'm not necessarily just referring to influencers, but when you're talking about, you don't want necessarily, which Shelley just sort of said, maybe there's an influencer that has the most followers, but that may not align with your brand. So when you're talking about who you might have at these events, or again, integrating it with the overall strategy, or the overall message that Toyota has, how do you then sort of safeguard that?
Yeah, I think it starts with the process that we have in place to actually vet and select the right influencers or Team Toyota members. We go through a very robust vetting and selection process. It takes about 6 to 8 months for us to actually go through, ask the influencer a number of questions, dig into, what they really care about, what makes them tick, and also, have a lot of dialogue before we ever bring them into the Toyota family to make sure there is also an interest in truly being part of the brand. Because when we bring these folks into the Toyota family, there's an expectation that they are going to be part of what we're doing in a pretty big way. So I think that's critical. If you do that work up front, then the rest really falls in place. But it's also understanding who's the segment of the consumer that's going to be at these events. And I think just understanding the behaviors, the preferences, the composition of the audience that is going to be present at any activation or event, and making sure that the folks that are speaking on behalf of Toyota they're relevant to the subject matter of the audience. And also I think you asked a question about preparing them. We also do not ever provide a script. I think that brings such inauthenticity, but we do make sure that anyone that's part of Team Toyota is deeply steeped in understanding the brand and the business.
Well, it just sounds like, from all of you, just that true value. Each of you have your signature of what you are all about, and it seems like not just with the influencers, but just in the events and just sort of setting it up that way. I'm curious in terms of, I know it's not always easy when you're talking about events, really having those metrics and what everyone loves to hear about in terms of the successes, but how were you measuring success, and what type of results were you seeing down the line? We can start, Deidre.
All of the traditional ways, hand raisers and, dwell time and all of those traditional, I think KPIs, but what is really important, if you think about, and it sounds like what we're all trying to do, it's about building an emotional connection and a relationship with consumers to make them think a little bit differently, to understand the essence of the brand, to connect in some way with something that, we care about and that we can share a value around. And so we do a lot of work to make sure we're understanding brand perception, and when consumers walk away, do they have a different perception of the brand, a different thought, a better understanding? So I think looking across the whole funnel, but particularly, I think top of funnel metrics, to make sure that we have left an imprint on a consumer, that they know more about who we are as a brand and what we stand for.
Shelley, I know, did you want to add something first?
No.
Oh, Shelley, you had talked about, because again, much of this is very upper funnel, but it's obviously trying to bring it down the funnel a little bit. You mentioned a little bit with with the Fashion Island events, and you were able to see an uptick there. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and we, again, measure everything. We are really good at data and measurement, but one of the important ones, aside from brand consideration and awareness, is also then taking this experience and turning into leads. We have to sell cars. That's what we're here for. And the way that we did it, as I said, Fashion Island's low pressure, but if you did submit a lead, we want to make sure that the retailer's aware of what we're doing. We would call them ahead of time. We would tell them what they were doing. Not just the owners, but the people that were working the floor. They all knew that this was happening. And so if they were going to get a call, they would be able to work and talk authentically about what was happening that day, and to really translate that into a sale. So it's not as sexy as some of the other things that we measure, but it's very important for us, obviously, to turn those leads into sales.
And it sounds like you obviously had to do it in conjunction with the other the dealers in the area.
Absolutely.
And really
And we
promote
brought them in. We brought them in early. We do have part of our field team, too, that could tell them, hey, this is happening. These are the type of clients that are going to be there. You may see an influx of leads. Make sure you know this. But, it doesn't always get to all the salespeople, so that's what was important for us to get over there in front of them, let them know that this was happening.
Bridget, did you want to say something as well?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think that the KPIs are, of course, really important. I think for our events, we are generally, for at least the past couple of years, have been less focused on leads and more focused on making sure that people had a really clear understanding of the brand and that it was resonating. And so at everything we do, there's this layer of the Subaru love promise that comes through, and it comes through in different ways depending on where you are and where you're engaging with us. But we are a smaller brand. We've been more of a challenger brand, and so building that consistent brand identity has been a huge part as of lately. So of course we love leads. We love reporting on leads. That's how we kind of pay those things off internally. But yeah, so very similar, like a hybrid of the two answers.
And I would just say from our side, we will say sometimes that our best new customers are our existing customers, because what we find in our brand is that, sort of once they've become a Miniac and they're loyal to us, they're adding more Minis to their family, and they're not giving up the car that they have. And so just because they're a current owner, it doesn't mean that they can't become an owner of a second car or a third car.
Yeah, no, that is true. Well, I'm going to open up to you guys, but I do want to sort of ask about learnings, because all of this, events have been going on for some time now within the automotive industry, but as we've sort of been mentioning, it's much more important today. So there's a lot of learnings. And Shelley, let's start with you in terms of what would you do differently than what you did before?
Yeah, it's great timing for us because we're planning our new grassroots events. And something that I think we could have done a better job of last time is making those Instagrammable moments, like these environments that people want to share. Everybody's a content creator. I have a 15-year-old at home, so I know like everything is about TikTok. And even if you look at our auto show activation, it's very different than anything you've seen from us in the past. It ties back to a big idea that we'll reveal in June. But it really is about creating this shareable spaces that people want to put on their social media, because then they're extending your brand for you and really doing some of that heavy lifting.
How about for you, Alexia?
I think for us, post-COVID, I think we shifted a lot to try and create digital experiences during COVID. We were trying to carry through digital experiences in conjunction with real life experiences. And I think what we are finding is that people want the real life experiences, right? They're ready to let go of the digital experiences. It's not the same thing as being in a car with or interacting with other people. And so, you know, we have this word called phygital, so a physical experience, a digital experience. Very German, thank you. We're moving more toward in person and really focusing on that and taking what's happening in person and amplifying that out through digital platforms.
So starting at in real life.
Back to the basics.
IRL.
I think for us, the key learning would be bring something forward to your experiences. That's the reason why folks want to be there and they want to engage with you, and it makes your brand more interesting. And then from there, it's a nice sort of easy transition into who we are and the products that we build. So for me, those are the big takeaways that I've seen other brands get tripped up, where they come in too strong with their agenda, and that's really not our approach. It's more about allowing people to sort of engage on their own terms and then serving them up our products.
I would say don't underestimate the value of having a clear strategy in place. You know, I think we went through a process about 2 years ago. We completely revamped our sponsorship marketing strategy, and where we are now, you know, we have very strong guardrails. We have clear parameters around what we want to and what we don't want to do with the partnerships that we have, and it's allowed us to, you know, frankly say no, which is not always the easiest thing to do. So, you know, clear, concise strategy that's consumer-centric is critical.
Have some questions.
There you go. Great panel. I'm Dave Edwards from R3. Question for Deirdre. Talked a lot about, I mean, sponsorships incorporate and encompass so much more these days. You already talked about influencer and content development and events and social. So just curious to know what you can share about, like, what's the most challenging part of your job at Toyota these days?
That's a great question. You know, I think it is figuring out how to allocate resources to ensure that we're focused on the partnerships and the initiatives that are driving the most value for us. We have a pretty broad, you know, I think, portfolio of partnerships. But I will say having this new strategy in place, which really gives us more clarity around what we expect out of partnerships, and you know, I think what is just not working for us has been incredibly helpful. And so, you know, we're also working in parallel on re-engineering our measurement model when it comes to how we evaluate each and every partnership in a silo, but also having a methodology in place so we can compare and contrast the value of each of those partnerships. So, you know, I think, like I said, saying no is honestly probably the hardest part, because we're very loyal. We're very loyal to the brands that we've worked with, that we have relationships with, but it's figuring out saying no that, you know, it's in an informed way.
Hi, I'm Mike Gemp. I'm the director of the Philadelphia Auto Show, and I just had a quick question. I'm over here. So I know that, you know, Toyota, Subaru, you're big supporters in a lot of shows across the country. You know, many, maybe not as many, and Infinity being kind of selective in where you go. And I've just been hearing over the course of the last 2 days, I went to the Auto Forum yesterday, and Jose Munoz referred to auto shows as like reverse marketing, right, where people are paying to actually come in to experience and learn more about your company. And VW today earlier talked about experiences and the diverse market, you know, the consumers that come to auto shows that would take 3 to 4 different marketing campaigns to reach, and how great that all is. So, you know, maybe more for Infinity and Mini, what is it that auto shows? I know we're doing electric ride and drives, we're doing more interactive, more immersive things. We're definitely experiential now, even though I know sometimes we seem to fall outside the bucket. But is there something auto shows you could see be doing maybe a better job at, where you would then maybe consider putting yourself either back into an auto show or going to more auto shows across the country?
Yeah, auto shows are very important for us. You know, we've made our return to the New York Auto Show. It's something that we're always evaluating. to make sure we're in the right markets with the right people. And they don't all have to be a Tier 1 auto show. We also have Tier 2 kits that we make for our retailers. We're really engaged with that. My team actually helps manage that and evaluate that. So they're really important. And I think that people are coming here and wanting to experience the car. So that is really important for us. But, you know, we do have to look at the whole portfolio of grassroots and auto shows and experiential events. And, you know, as we said before, we have a smaller resource bucket. So it's really going through and saying, okay, what am I going to get the most bang for my buck with each of these, whether it's partnerships or auto shows. But they are really important for us. And we, you know, we're not walking away from them at Tier 1 or Tier 2.
I would say similarly the same thing. It's really about the allocation of resources, and if the end result is to have somebody that's interacting with your car have an emotional experience, where is that best delivered? Is it at an auto show or is it a drive experience? And that's really what drives that decision.
All right, great. Thank you, ladies, so much. Really appreciate your time.